making Jaylee's total $112,553.30.
I earned over $66,000 in non-institutional scholarships, totaling over $200,000 to go to college when you add in my institutional scholarships and my government aid. Today, I want to show you how you can do the same so that you can go to college debt-free. Your letter of recommendations are something that if you mess up, your chances of getting the scholarship will be lower. So what I recommend doing is first get it done quickly. Fill it out with as much detail as possible and put into it details that your recommender wouldn't even know about you. Any hardships you went through, anything you're really passionate about. Show everything about you so they can put you in the most positive light possible. Speaking from personal experience, some people will take 3 months or longer to get your letter of recommendation back after you request one. So the best thing you can do is ask early as possible. You might wonder, who do I even give a letter of recommendation request to? Well, you need at least 3 for your standard form, so I recommend first get one from a counselor. You almost always need that. If you play a sport, get one from your coach. If you have a specific career path and you know anyone, get one from them. And finally, teacher. Americans owe $1.87 trillion in federal and private student loan debt as of the first quarter of 2026. Studies have shown that individuals who struggle with debt are more likely to also suffer from depression and anxiety, including headaches, lack of quality of sleep, and inability to focus or function. Despite that, it's estimated that close to $100 million in scholarships goes unclaimed each year and $2 billion in student grants go unclaimed. First off, here's the wrong way to describe an activity. ALA California Girls State was on Board of Education, jury, and press corps member. Now, this is wrong because it doesn't fully describe what they did and give a clear picture of what the activity is. Here's a better way to describe an activity. ALA California Girls State. Girls State is a national 5-day fast-paced mock government program where students can run for positions. I was elected to the Board of Education where we made a school budget, press corps where I wrote an article featured on the website, and served as a jury member for a mock trial. This version is better because it shows clear involvement through action words instead of just being a person in the group. Through words like elected, wrote, stuff like that, it shows that they had an active role in this organization. Furthermore, you can see that it's a national program, which means it was hard to get into, showing the applicant in a more positive light. I know that there have been times before where I have been absolutely stumped on what to write about for a scholarship application. So let me walk you through some things. First, research the company that's giving the scholarship. What do they value? And how can you show that through your essay? This really helps if they have certain goals that are in line with what you believe, because you can talk about that more passionately. Second, what makes you unique? What is so special about you that they would pick you out of everyone else? If you go through something particular that no one else does, this is your time to write about that. And then another thing that you could think about is what really matters to you. When you can ramble on and on about something, that's the thing that you should write about, because you will have the most passionate beliefs about that and be able to write about that most well. If your entire beliefs, goals, motives could be described in one essay, what would you write about? So for example, my childhood influenced who I grew up to be, so that's what I wrote about. I wrote about my struggles with my parents. If something like that influenced you, you should be writing about that. So now that we know what to write about, it's time to decide how to write. There are a few different formats you can use, but what I like to use is called the PAIR technique. PAIR stands for problem, action, impact, and reflection. Basically, throughout your essay, you should be showing a character growth arc like you would see in a movie, because that will make them want to root for you. If you show a problem within yourself, within society, something that you had to solve and that you grew as a result of, they will want to root for you and will want to pick you. So now we'll go through a bit of how I would outline an essay using this technique. So with my jogathon example, the problem is that the playground equipment was really low. We didn't have a lot, and the kids weren't playing a lot. I connected this to how kids aren't getting enough exercise, and that was my problem. The action I did was make the jogathon. And so the impact of that action, creating the jogathon, was that we raised $6,000 and we're able to get more equipment. So as a reflection, I say that I grew as a person. I was able to gain independence and a sense of belonging in the community. You can see that throughout this, I gain a character arc. So now we'll just go through how I would expand this essay, obviously a little bit shortened. So if you pay attention to the bolded words, you can see that I was trying to use words that show an action. Words like coordinating and finding, planning show that I had an active role in planning this. One thing that really helps with the impact section of your essay is showing a impact through a number. So I mentioned the specific 6,000, and through interviews from scholarships, people have held on to that number. They've been like, wow, $6,000. So when you have a specific measurable impact, use it. Another thing to use within your essay is the strong hook. That helps them grab onto your essay and pay attention to you more. Now, be in the position of the committee member looking at your essay. They have already looked at probably hundreds to thousands of other applicants reading so many essays. If they're generic, they're not going to want to look at your essay unless you have a strong hook pulling them in. So this was the biggest hook that I like to use. On Mother's Day 2014, I picked a dandelion from the grass and blew the white petals into the wind. The reason that this hook works so well is because they'll look at the date and think, why that date? They'll think, why are you blowing on a dandelion? They'll want to know more. Then, as you can see, my introduction expands on that a little bit more and shows why exactly I was doing that. I was wishing for my mom to come back. This works so well because it tells the reader why you're doing something, and it leads into the actions that you're about to take. They want to know what you're going to do about this problem. My favorite way to end an essay is to tie the main hook back in and make sure that I have a good reflection in there. So you can see that my entire essay talks about addiction through my parents, and I come back to it by saying that addiction is hereditary, but I'm going to break the cycle. Then I end it by tying it back to the original dandelion theme so that they will remember that and it will stick in their mind better. Admissions readers spend roughly 4 to 8 minutes reviewing an entire application, which means responses should be written so key points are immediately clear even when skimmed. The College Essay Guide recommends avoiding being general, not repeating yourself, and showing variety. I first started using a planner in December of last year, and it helped me a lot with a lot of things. I wrote down all of my scholarship deadlines, and instead of finding out by Googling when it's due, I could just look at my planner and know right away. It's easy to get overwhelmed when you have so many scholarships to apply for, so I really recommend having some sort of visual tracker to know when everything is due. Another thing I like to do was track the status of my scholarships. So I would write down the scholarship name in one column, and then in the next I would write either A for accepted, R for rejected, or IP for in progress. Then if I did get it, I wrote the amount. It really helps to stay organized this way because you might get lost on what you have and haven't submitted. Physical planners tap into spatial memory. Your brain remembers what you wrote and where you wrote it. The spatial context provides extra memory cues, helping with information recall later. Planners reduce digital distractions, fire up executive function networks that control attention, working memory, and memory flexibility. A study of business owners showed that having a disorganized company can cost 6 working hours per week. Another tactic you should consider is having all of your needed documents for scholarships saved in your drive. So what I recommend doing is get all of your letters of recommendations signed and get them in a digital copy so every time you need them, you can print them out.